Good evening and welcome back. I'm Unzube Ufodike and I'm going to quickly invite my colleague, Charlie Fadden, who would be introducing tonight's event to you. So the high level topic, as you all know, it's on EdTech. We have an amazing lineup of guests that'll be speaking to the topic. I'll invite Charlie to share a little bit more. So Charlie, when you're ready, over to you.
Hello, hi, good evening all. Thank you very much for taking the time to attend today. We've got a myriad of information to share with yourselves today, and we've also got some key speakers alongside us today. So as Nzube mentioned, my name is Charlie. My role here is that of the Vice Chair within BCS EMBRACE, enabling strategy formulation, industry partnership, securing sponsorship, and co-governance. I'm also the founder of Go Live Test, a QA test management consultancy within the digital space. Just a brief introduction about EMBRACE. EMBRACE is a specialist group looking at race and ethnicity in the IT industry. As a group, we will work to make the IT profession more racially diverse by supporting BCS and external initiatives. Our group is open to all members. There will be opportunities for non-members to become part of the BCS EMBRACE towards the end of the session. The breakdown of today's events would be a brief introduction by the speakers. Then we'll have some conversation and dialogues. Then there'll be a summary and there'll be a breakout room. So without further ado, I would like to step into the event. And today, the event is about personalizing e-learning. So what the impetus for the event is that e-learning found its roots in 1999, when it was first used to describe the earliest versions of electronic education. However, it went mostly under the radar until it was desperately relied upon from the initial effects of the COVID-19, which hit in early 2020. COVID evoked a sudden boom in popularity for e-learning, and it became a huge help to children and teachers alike. However, the rise in the use also shone light on some of the main issues with learning digitally. And it's with this, we've got speakers here today to shed some light and share some of their insights into the world of e-learning and some of the challenges which we face. To start us off with, I'd like to introduce Julian from Ask Ultra. Julian is the CEO and founder of the world's first artificial intelligence chatbot that can teach entrepreneurship to kids and teens, called Ask Ultra. Julian has co-written 3 degrees in entrepreneurship and launched the UK's first mobile game for kids entrepreneurship. A member of the Association of Business Mentors, Freeman of the Company of Entrepreneurs, Fellow of the Royal Society of Arts, member of the Shakespeare Globe Council, and founding member of UK Black Tech. Welcome, Julian.
Hi, Charlie. Good evening, and thank you for having me.
Welcome. Would you like to give us a quick, beyond what I've said, any quick intros you'd like us to, the audience, to be aware of?
Yeah, sure. So I'm really keen to get into the discussion this evening. I've always been a fan of technology since I was a little boy. When everyone else was playing with Action Man, I was playing on my Commodore 16, trying to copy the code from the computer magazine so that I could play bat and ball. So it used to take me about half an hour to copy the basic code into my 16K, a whole bunch of memory there, 16K computer, and just to play a simple game. But if I copied, just as you would imagine, if I copied one line of code incorrectly, the game wouldn't work. So I would have to go back and start, double checking what I copied. But what that did, and we're talking, I was, 7 years old, 7, 8 years old, that got me comfortable with tech. It got me comfortable with code. It got me comfortable with computers in general. And that passion just grew, and it really extended to everything that I do in life. And today we use technology to try and reach more young people and to just upskill them in things like business, entrepreneurship, financial literacy, and life skills. So yeah, really, really keen to hear the other speakers and just listen to what I'm sure will be a rich discussion this evening.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. All right, I'd like to introduce our next panelist, Leah. Leah is the traineeship manager for Prevista. Leah has been working in skills for about 2 years with a focus on offering young people a meaningful alternative to mainstream education. She continually works to upskill and support individuals to become socially mobile and secure sustainable employment. Welcome, Leah. How are you today?
Hi, Charlie. Thanks for having me.
You're most welcome.
So I feel quite inadequate here with all these awesome people. So I'm going to put my little 2 pence in. So I'm pretty late to the party when it comes to IT. So I've come from a very traditional teaching and upskilling background, but COVID kind of pushed me and my operations to kind of move into the e-space. And my contribution today really is to kind of talk about that shift, the experiences that came along with that shift, particularly for the young people that we work with, and also just discuss what we all take for granted, which is access to IT. And I always joke that our young people are surgically attached to their mobile phones. Actually, there's a significant ICT deficit in their knowledge and skills. So that's going to be my contribution, but I'm going to be listening to also these awesome people that are way up there in the IT world, and I'm going to learn lots this evening.
Thank you very much. I'm sure you would also be sharing a lot of positive things that many of the members will find valuable.
Thanks, Charlie.
All right. I'd also like to introduce James. James is a professor in Nigerian universities and Open University of Tanzania. He is also the chair of eLearning Specialist Group. He's a chartered IT professional and a fellow of the British Computer Society and the UK Higher Education Academy. I think James might have dropped off. I had him on not too long ago. Okay, we'll progress. He may have to join in again. James, are you on the call? You may be having some technical issues and may have dropped off. So let's progress with the audience we have and with the members we have. Right, Julian, how are you today? You all right?
I'm very well, Charlie. Been a busy day, but it's always a busy day.
I know.
How have you been?
I've been all right. Preparing for this, so making sure that we've got enough people that would find value in what we've got to do. So let's start with you, Julian. Tell me, what's the current state of e-learning right now, post-COVID, or given we've gone through the COVID? What's the landscape look like now?
Well, I mean, I think when prior to COVID, there was kind of a prediction that e-learning was the future, right? Yeah. And I think that what the pandemic has done has brought that future forward. So all of the ways in which we had imagined hybrid learning and mobile app technologies and teaching remotely and digital skills, COVID has thrust that upon us in a way where we've had to, get up to speed pretty quickly. I mean, when I say we, I mean the global population, right? What it's also done, what EdTech's also done though, is it's also proven that technology can help to close the gap for those who don't have access to the types of learning that can keep them engaged and keep them progressing in their education and in their learning journey. Because, outside of human contact in the way that traditional education is delivered, we found that, people learn differently. and people respond very differently, and that actually the value of being in a face-to-face environment isn't just about knowledge exchange, right?
Yes.
You know, there's a lot more that comes with it. So it's allowed us to kind of reframe, what are we getting out of the socialization that comes with education and being around your friends, other students, teachers, and just the learning community? And then what could be done outside of that environment, but also how could that be done in conjunction? And I think that's where EdTech has come now. It's less about is it EdTech or is it traditional education? It's now, well, actually, there is a firm hybrid that has formed over that period.
Exactly.
Because
Yes.
we've, learned the benefits, and now people want the best of both worlds, which I think is a great place to be.
Exactly. It's the concept of blended learning right now. James, welcome back. We lost you briefly there. You're most welcome. We've discussed in past about blended learning. Are you able to share some insights into this, given the and share the landscape of e-learning with us and what this blended learning could look like that Julian alluded to just now?
Yes, thank you very much, Charlie, and thanks to everybody. Blended learning is a mix of both fully mode of delivery of education. That's a fully online mode of delivery of online education, and the traditional face-to-face mode of educational delivery. Now, today, going forward, following the challenges that the pandemic COVID-19 has thrown at us, I think most institutions seems to have settled for blended learning because it allows people to slowly adjust to the new normal. And by the new normal, just as Julian rightly stated, I think it was in the year 2000. Actually, I tell you what, just to give you a brief history here. 1999, most of us at Queen's University where we tried to inform the university that the way forward was e-learning, and it took us it was a tough time, but at that time Ulster University, that's my institution, had already created a virtual campus, and most people were laughing at that institution that it has a virtual campus. And we kept hammering on, especially in our own e-learning specialist group, we kept hammering on that e-learning was important. It was important. But people were confused, they were confused. They said, what do you mean by e-learning? Is it learning on the web or something of such? Now, we have to very early on define what we mean by the two major types, or the two modes, or the two types of e-learning. We have the blended e-learning and the fully online. That's the full e-learning. Now, the blended will allow you to, just as we are talking about personalized e-learning here now, the blended approach will allow you to pick and choose what aspect of the process of education you want to make e-learning, and other ones that you want to make to be face-to-face. Now, but for the fully online, all kind of training and everything, interactions and everything has to be fully online without any physical interaction. And by the way, for any learning to take place, we've got to, whether it's blended or fully online or even face-to-face, there are 3 levels of interaction that need to be promoted and need to be present. That's all, 3 elements really. The first is the instructional materials and the learner interaction. So learner instructional materials interaction has to be there. The second element is learner interaction. The learner and that's the learner and the other learners have to interact with themselves. The third important element is the tutor-learner interaction. Now, if any of these 3 elements are missing in any process of education, genuine learning will not be taking place. And those were the original standards that were set for e-learning to become fully operational in institutions. So for blended learning, just to cut the chase, for blended learning, it is a mixture between the fully online and the face-to-face, and it's what we are now trying to encourage a lot of people to go to, because it's like a shock, for the entire system, that you now need to live online. You do business online, you learn online, you interact online, you do everything online. And even now, we are, I think, you look at even developing countries that are now, that have actually moved as entrepreneurs now to start thinking of developing their own online monetary systems, which is taking the world by storm today.
Yes, exactly. Thank you very much for that. So we've, for clarifying this learning journey and talking about blended learning. Well, Leah, all this wonderful talk about e-learning, blended learning, what's the situation for those? Is there a divide taking place for those who cannot be part of this journey?
I think there absolutely is, and we have to be really kind of mindful that socioeconomics plays a massive part in this. Just talking about the young people that we work with in my space, we work from those who have rebelled against mainstream education. There's those who are just unsuitable for mainstream education, and then those who don't have much choice due to choices outside their control or consequences of things that they've done. What we found that the socioeconomic poverty line has caused an issue, because these devices are not cheap to buy.
No.
And we had government schemes that offered devices during the pandemic, which were very short term. And we found that when that offer came in, it was taken away just as quickly, and it kind of left a lot of families that we work with without the ability to be included in online learning. So I think we just need to remember that I advocate online learning. It works very well for our more vulnerable groups. So our young people with anxiety and depression, this is a really good model for them, because it keeps them in that safe space without having the difficulties of social engagement. But one of the downsides is there's almost an expectation for these young people to have the equipment to be involved. So that is a deficit that we need to look at as we do move forward with e-learning.
Yeah, so what can be done? Because we've mentioned that there's the socioeconomic factor. Potentially there are other things. So let's even look at it from a culture. So you've mentioned the socioeconomic factor. What about the cultural factor, James? How is this impeding inclusion into the digital learning and the e-learning movement that we've seen?
Thank you very much, Charlie. The element of culture is crucial. And in fact, this is what brings the real, it touches on the nerve of learning, really, and the nerve of divide, the digital divide. And this is where the BCS, and especially, I will say here, the e-learning specialist group, and yourselves now, that is actually touching on these important issues. This is where you are helping to provide solutions here. For example, for the economy to grow, for people to learn, and for so many things to do, the resources are needed. People need to interact. People need to know what is where, how, and why. Now, the elements of culture, if you look at before now, before this proliferation of e-learning, I'll just give example using myself here. I have people who are very, very, who are aged back in my country, who maybe cannot speak English, and in order for me to communicate to them, to interact with them, I had to write a letter or say something like it had to be interpreted. But today, with e-learning, these people now, they have their own mobile phone. And anytime they want to contact James, they just on their phone, they tell me, oh, James, this is what I need in our own language, you know, without having to learn English or learn French or learn German or anything like that. And then when I even tell them I don't understand what they are saying, or even for some of my students in Tanzania today, or even some in Nigeria, when I'm interacting with them, I'm able to use local example, I'm able to speak the local language, and that is a process of enabling and empowering the people to be who they are. And this is that is where, for example, I really liked in the eLearning specialist group and what you're actually doing in Embrace here now. You look at the number of people that you brought together. It doesn't matter where these people have come from all over the world. Now they are listening to us within the confines or within the comfort of their own bedroom or their room or wherever they are able to participate in this wonderful event and able to challenge themselves with questions about learning, e-learning, about, oh, where are the resources? What do we actually mean by e-learning, and so on and so forth. And so there's a decision that has been taken by the e-learning specialist group. We have an international conference which we offer every year. And I think since last year, we've made this conference fee-free, okay, for everybody. It's fee-free, but the output of this conference is made also available freely to everyone in the world, you know, and is published online as well. And why are we doing that? We are doing that to let people know that there is enough in the world for everyone. If all of us become digitally literate, if all of us, we are not just talking about making the world a better place, but we're actually doing something about it. If we are enabling and empowering the young entrepreneurs, you know, to really get up and do something for the world, and we those of us who are researchers, who are teachers, or anything, or those of us who are also some people who are millionaires or anything, if they share enough, you know, there will be enough for everyone. So there is enough in the world for everybody. If we care enough and we share enough, there'll be enough for to go around. So culture is important. There's enough. There's a lot that we in the advanced part of the world can learn from those we call the developing or the developed or the underdeveloped world. There's a lot to be yet to be explored and to be learned from them. And there's a lot that those people can learn from us too. So it's a question of interaction, exchange.
Coming together and exchange. Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you very much for that. Yeah. Thank you very much for that, James. So, Julian, James touched on how e-learning is enabling access, whether it be from a cultural perspective. I would like to touch on it from a young people's perspective, staying at home, in a house, maybe one laptop, and just touching on the whole, what are the other options available to us? So we've got the laptop, then what about the mobility access? How is that's gonna enable access into learning? Let's even forget the terminology e-learning. Let's say learning. How can you shed a bit of light on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, just giving some context by telling the story that caused me to develop our first kind of mobile solution. So, you know, we are running physical clubs. We're talking 2016, 2015, delivering entrepreneurial training. And, you know, my son, who was 6 at the time, I thought, well, you know, he's a bit too young to kind of, you know, go to the workshops, but I wanted to just introduce this concept of entrepreneurship. And I thought, well, look, what's going to be the path of least resistance to, you know, 6 and 7-year-olds? And, you know, as they are now, you know, the mobile gaming scene was booming. And I thought, well, you know, why not kind of create a mobile game? We used the kind of endless runner format, so the kind of Temple Run or Subway Surf format, change the characters to become entrepreneurial characters. So we've got Penelope Prophet and Entrepreneur Eddie. And, you know, there's a story that they're kind of, you know, startup dash. So they're kind of running to get to start up their business. And, you know, they're having to pay wages at the end of each month. They're running into the competition. They're picking up, you know, cryptocurrency along the way. and the backdrop is set. You know, there are different businesses that are kind of set in the backdrop, and then there's a Dash dictionary which introduces basic words which are surrounding business and entrepreneurship. So essentially what we did was look at how young people engage with technology, right?
Okay.
We would all like to think that young people will sit in front of a course, a structured course, and, you know, take a disciplined approach to digesting that course, right? We'd love to think that, but actually what happens is that, you know, teachers and parents, we kind of make them do it, right? or we give them a carrot and say, if you do this course, we know you don't really want to do it, but if you do it, then there's something at the end of it for you. And I thought that has its place, but, you know, is there a way that we could gamify the learning? Is there a way that we can make it fun? Is there a way that we can make it interesting and engaging? And that's when we started to, you know, develop these mobile apps as almost as experiments to see how kids would engage and whether or not any, and because in some ways, before you consider learning, there's got to be awareness, right? You know, awareness often comes before learning, because learning is when you're now engaged. Learning is an active process, but awareness is more about shining a light on a topic. And it could be anything, right?
Yes.
But and what we found is that young people, particularly from disadvantaged backgrounds, they're not aware of choices that children who are more socially mobile are aware of, right? So if you're not aware of it, you can't aspire to it. You can't even start thinking about attaining it. So we wanted to find ways in which we could just kind of cross that chasm, and just by doing it in a fun way, giving them something that they would do without being told to do or forced to do, which is gamifying. And I know lots of, you know, edtech platforms have, you know, have been gamifying learning. And so for us, that's where we started. And I think that, you know, it's difficult now. You know, back in my day, I would like to think that we were more compliant when it came to learning. Whereas I think, you know, this generation, it's not so much that they're less compliant, but they do need to understand why there's more pushback, right? Okay. They're not just going to learn for the sake of it. You know, they want to know the context, they want to know why, and that presents a challenge, right? You know, sometimes teachers haven't got the capacity to explain to 30 kids why they're learning Pythagoras, right? Just get on with it and learn it, for goodness sake. But that's a challenge, right? It's difficult. So educators are looking for other ways to engage kids with learning, to develop an awareness of the options that are out there. And educational technology plays a massive role. In fact, it's one of the primary ways in which educators and parents are trying to bridge that gap, you know, to get awareness and learning to young people and to children.
Yes, thank you very much for that. I'm hearing social mobility, and this is something that resonates with you, Leah. Are you, so Julian's talking about this from a provider of this service. You represent a body that consumes such things, and I'm hearing things like social mobility. Are you able to share some insights on this as to what the current challenges are, what can be done? Are the industry doing the right thing right now to get you to listen to what they're saying, so that potentially, from your perspective, is this something we want to implement to our children or to our learners?
Sure. So, you know, from our point of view, what e-learning and kind of the push for the COVID, really, to be honest, what it has done, it's allowed geographical barriers to just be knocked down, diminished. Lots of young people who, you know, for whatever reason, can't do mainstream education are now able to access other ways of succeeding in their educational pathways. They're able to look at alternative ways to become successful adults. But you're absolutely right that there are restrictions to that in regards to, you know, households only have one device and multiple users that need to be doing that. You know, even in this day and age, we forget that unlimited data is expensive to have. It's not as expensive as it used to be, but some families still can't have that when it's a choice between, do they have the heating on and or do they, you know, have internet for their kids to be able to do their learning? And we saw that because, you know, the young people that I work with predominantly come from backgrounds that aren't maybe the greatest. You know, you've got kids that are coming out of YOS or probation or care leavers, asylum seekers and refugees, and they're the most vulnerable groups, and really, to be honest. And we need to be able to put in provision to support them. So, you know, as an organisation, we put in a free loan scheme to ensure inclusion. And we realised that just giving them a laptop is great, but if they have no data, it just sits there like another object on the side. So it's about taking that step forward. It has to be a package. And, you know, what providers and organisations need to do is look at the sustainability. You know, many organisations, after 3 or 5 years, they've been in their IT equipment. What about recycling and giving to the educational system? Just because it's not up to speed with what you need for a workspace, you know, it's going to be an invaluable asset to these organisations that can support the young people. I just want to kind of just take a moment, because I've been out delivering mental health first aid today for teachers, and I kind of just need to kind of flip this on the head, that we all need to remember as we move into to e-learning. We have to make sure there's a warning here, and I'm going a bit off topic, so apologies, Charlie. It's just that I've spoken about it a lot this afternoon. Is we have to prepare our young people for e-safety, and actually the consequences of cyberbullying on young people's mental health. So not only are they affected by you know, isolation because of where we've been, and the consequences of e-learning as a last resort for some people, we've got to factor in actually we're also making them susceptible to cyberbullying, to being victims, and just kind of put out there, cyberbullying and bullying is like the second most common reason why young boys contact Childline. It's like the third most reason why young children contact Childline. And we're not talking about, you know, teenagers. We're talking as young as 8, 11-year-olds contacting and needing counselling because of unsupervised e-learning and access to the internet. And I think we just, to be able to personalise it, one of the things we need to remember with personalising it is the fact that we need to keep it a safe, personalised space as well. So apologies for going off topic a little bit, but
that's okay. It's okay. It's all right. These are some of the things we've got to highlight as part of the journey of the e-learning journey. Yes, we're personalizing a lot of things. We've also got to make sure that for those who are potentially vulnerable, there should be safeguards in place as part of the e-learning personalization and journey. So if I talk to you, James, about so where we are now, we know where we are, we know some of the challenges, we've highlighted some of it today. We've talked about social mobility, we've talked about accessibility to the e-learning, but where's this all going? Where do we want this to go, actually? Then I'm going to come to you, Julian, to tell me where we think it should be, where it's going so far. So let's start with you, James. Okay, where do we think it should go?
Yeah, thank you very much, Charlie. I think where we need, in order to consider properly where we are heading, we need to first of all look at or assess the importance or recognize the importance of personalized e-learning, and then identify the major benefits of personalized e-learning, and then also identify too some key components of personalized learning, whether e-learning or whatever kind. First of all, let us, just to illustrate, none of us here will be happy to buy a new car, give it to a child that they love very well, give the keys of the car to the child and say, drive on. without, first of all, teaching the child how to drive safely.
Mhm.
Now, what is happening is, with e-learning, everybody has now become pilots and they are flying everywhere. So you can imagine what is happening here.
Mm.
No major rules at play. Although no matter how bad the flight is, we've never seen two birds flying in the air collide. So if we walk with that faith, that belief, there will be no collision. But birds are different from us human beings in the sense that the world we are living in now, we have a lot of people who throw things out there that the young mind, our children of today, eager to learn, they are not just blank slates, okay? That we, people, dinosaurs like myself or the older generation, we were treated as blank slates on which teachers or parents could write on and be told how to do things. But the children of today, they are not like that at all. They are people, they are, who are agile, who are responsive, who are interested in what is happening around them and really want to make the world better. So e-learning, in a way, we need to take, how will I put it? We need to take control of e-learning and raise awareness, just as rightfully Julian have stated there. We need to raise the awareness of what e-learning really comprise of, and then taking into consideration the various issues about e-safety. We need to also factor that in. Now, to really to drive home some of the points here, just to outline the benefits of personalized e-learning. Personalized learning helps to prioritize a clear understanding of the needs and goals of each individual student, of each individual learner, and the tailoring of this instruction to address those needs and the goals. Now, the goals here, they are many and varied, okay? So inclusivity must be considered. That the diversity involved must be considered. And the learning has to be such that it promotes equality, the provision of equality of opportunity for the learners. Now, also, on the benefits here, I will say, when properly supported by the tutors or the teachers or the business owners or anything, it can help the learner or to learn independently and work at their own pace, which actually leads to increased productivity. Now, there are the key components for personalized learning that I want to allude to here. 5 of them were identified by the DFES as far back as 2004. The first is assessment for learning. The second is effective teaching and learning strategies to be put in place. The third is the curriculum entitlement and choice. We cannot force things down the throat of our learners of today.
Mm.
The fourth one is the school organization. And the final one is strong partnership beyond the school. And this is where the issue you were talking about, culture and so many other different things here, they need to come in. We are not just learning to become employees. We should be talking about learning to become self-employed or become employers, because our young people of today, people we think are from disadvantaged backgrounds, they have wonderful skill set, which if they are allowed to sort of come to the fore, they can actually turn them into great entrepreneurs. We need to look at that to make sure that the learning, the personalized learning we are devising is such that will enable, empower, and make these things to flourish.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that. Julian, we've heard James talk about where we think e-learning should be going. Is the industry able to meet those needs?
Well, hopefully with the help of the BCS, perhaps. I mean, but honestly, I think discussions like this in these forums are what is needed to bring thought leaders together and to push the industry forward. So I think the work, you know, all jokes aside, that you guys are doing is part of helping the industry to approach this in a more rounded fashion with a kind of diverse set of minds and points of view that can take a stab at what the future is going to look like, because it's a big guess, right? Who knows? But I do think that there are some trends. I do think that we're in a space where we can more meaningfully shape some of those outcomes. And for me, you know, in the work that we've been doing, for me, personalized learning has really been about looking at what the goal of education has always been. I mean, if you actually look at the time in which, you know, especially particularly in this country, where education wasn't available to everybody, it was usually available to the families of the wealthy, of people who are wealthy, and their children. And what would happen is you would have somebody who would be regarded as a master teacher who will come in and maybe teach 3 or 4 kids, maybe even 1 or 2. And it will be, you know, 1 to few, and they'd get a lot of face time. They, you know, and their learning will be accelerated, and it will be personalized, because you can personalize to a handful of kids, right? It's difficult to personalize to 30. And those, you know, the children who were privileged enough to have that experience had a rich learning experience, right? Now, when you know, we decided that everyone should have an education, which is a great thing, the challenge then came with capacity. So when we decided that everyone should be educated, and it shouldn't just be the rich, what then happened is the model that was placed behind that meant that it went from 1 to few to 1 to many, right? And in that regard, you had to standardize curriculum, you had to standardize learning, you had to standardize approaches. And we now know, not just through neurodiversity and everything else, we now know that doesn't work very well, right? And it's evident that that's become more ineffective as time has gone on, right? So what educational technology has allowed us to do is to get back to the time when there was a master teacher who could personalize learning, right? It's difficult for us to do that in a face-to-face environment, unless, of course, you know, you are still part of the privilege and you can afford very expensive schools, and you have a degree of that. But for the rest of us, I think educational technology, and just talking about the future, right? Educational technology for me provides us with the opportunity to level the playing fields with regards to the quality and quantity of education that is able to be delivered to everyone, regardless of, you know, where they're born, gender, skin color. Exactly. Educational technology, for me personally, that's where I see the opportunity for the future, because I think that everyone is realizing that the kind of social order it's not effective for the global community. It doesn't work. And so if you wind that back to how people are educated and what they're educated in, EdTech allows us, and the personalization around us allows a breadth of subjects to be available, and for those then to be personalized, again, in a blended learning fashion or a hybrid learning fashion. Yes. So that, you know, I you know, my vision is that EdTech will help to, you know, people always say make the world a better place, but defining that for me means that, again, we have a broader spectrum of educational options in front of us, and they can be personalized, which means that they can be more effective.
Yes, thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Can I add to that, please?
Leah?
Is that all right?
Yes, please. Yes, I was gonna come to you to speak about that. Yeah, no, anyway. Please, yes, we do. As to add on to what you were gonna say. So we've heard James speak from an academic perspective. We've had Julian speak from the EdTech industry perspective. as a practitioner within this industry, what do you think? And
so I'm actually agreeing with James and Julian, but I think, you know, the race, the culture, the gender thing, we are leveling out that playing field through EdTech. But I think there's still a gap there that we need to address, and that's taking a little bit step further, and that's with disabilities and Senko. And if we're going to make it personalised, we'd also need to look at how we're going to personalise for those who have learning difficulties, who have dyspraxia, who have dyslexia, who have, you know, a variety of mental health conditions that is going to affect their learning. So I feel absolutely bang on what everybody else is saying about how EdTech is going to be able to do that, and the personalisation piece is there. But what I want to see in the future, which is why it's really great to have all these, you know, entrepreneurs on here and these forward thinkers. But me as a practitioner and for my team and for the young people I work with, there's still a piece of work that needs to be done to be able to personalise for this other group who, you know, very often are left on the shelf. Let's be really honest here. They're left on the shelf, that they're on a back foot. And we see that even with the unemployment stats, that there's still a piece of what, there's still an inclusion piece that needs to happen. And we need to include that in the personalized piece of e-learning.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that. So very quickly, we're still on time. So quickly, brief 20 seconds wrap up summary of e-learning. So we'll start with you quickly, Leah. Very quick 20 seconds.
E-learning allows us to knock down geographical restrictions, offer inclusion, but we have to be mindful that we're still not 100% there in about being accessible to everybody. But we are on the right pathway.
Thank you very much. James, over to you.
E-learning is a solution waiting for problems, and it's definitely the way forward. That was why when I changed course, I'm a professional physicist, a laser physicist. I believed in education, and I believe the opportunities are endless.
Fantastic.
And it's totally unlimited, but we should never sacrifice learning for profit. We should rather sacrifice profit for learning and to make the world a better place. The students of today, they have a lot to give to us. The people of the world, from the underdeveloped part of the world, they have a lot to offer the world.
Yes.
E-learning is that bridge. And
fantastic.
That will help make things happen.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that. Yeah. Julian, very quick 20-second summary, personalizing e-learning, something for the audience to go away with, holding in their hands and say, yep, taking this away.
Yeah, I would encourage anyone to actually experience personalized learning through EdTech themselves. It could be learning a new language, it could be learning a new skill for work, it could be helping your kids to learn, actually, and even those who you support. And you will understand the benefits, I think, firsthand as to what the possibilities are for learning through technology, and that it provides us with probably the greatest opportunity that we've had to help decentralize the existing model of education and to provide access to those who need it the most.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to every member of the panel. We really appreciate your time this evening. We're going to now switch it over to the audience to ask some questions. You've covered a lot of topics, from accessibility to social mobility to cultural insights to views from the EdTech to views from mental health, safety. So there's been loads of topic covered here. So this is now going over to the audience. This is your time, audience, to be able to participate in the dialogue of today. Any questions? I'm looking at the chat. Has anybody got any questions, or is anybody putting their hands up for us to, then we can come to you? this is a good opportunity. Okay, and okay, let's see. This is a question from Samuel. A thought I had is that it's hard to personalize e-learning while having a structured platform in place. Is it possible to have some kind of lesson building software rolled out that teachers can then use to make personalized lessons? And that's from Samuel. I'll read it one more time. A thought I had is that it's hard to personalize e-learning while having a structured platform in place. Is it possible to have some kind of lesson building software rolled out that teachers can then use to make personalized lesson? This to you, Julian.
Yeah, it's a great question. And really, this strikes an arc to what the future of EdTech could offer, which is toolkits for educators, because that's essentially, I think, what the question alludes to.
Yeah.
And instead of technologists and educators dictating what the educational technology should do, I guess the suggestion here, which I think is a brilliant one, is what about providing a toolkit that educators can use who are in front of the learners to then create different forms of learning delivery, right? You know, I want to pick up on Leah's point around Senko and different learning styles. I mean, that's becoming more and more commonplace because we're now, I think, being able to better identify different learning styles. And so educators being able to do this, being able to use these tools to manipulate a framework so that it fits the learners that are in front of them, I think is extremely powerful. Yes.
Any of the other panelists want to comment on that briefly?
Yes,
quick 20 seconds.
Yes, yes, for 20 seconds, I would just say it's like trying to teach physics subject with just one type of tool is difficult because we have different types of learners here. But if you have a template in place, a template that is accepted to a particular community of practice, we refer to diverse communities of practice. If you have templates built, which will later lead to integration of that's knowledge integration, that could be a way forward. But it's very, very difficult. We can be prescriptive with learning.
Okay, which is also a nice segue to the next one, which is the nature of from Phil. Hi, Phil. Thank you for this. The nature of personalized learning means it's probably better in the hands of the learner. I'll let you quickly touch on this, James, since
okay,
I've got
yes,
it.
Yes, it's left in the hands of the e-learner, and that is why today you never really say, you know, in an e-learning platform, you never really call the teacher the teacher. The teacher is a facilitator.
Okay.
You're facilitating learning, you know, not trying to shove knowledge down the throat of anybody. So it's better left in the hands of the learner. The learner has to come up with a customized kind of approach to satisfying his learning needs and desires.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Leah, we've got a question here from Margaret. What could be done to help address the problem of digital divide?
I think it's about understanding the audience. And this is going to come down to the skill of tutors in the EE platform, because it's about tutors being able to contextualize to the audience to reduce that divide. Easier said than done, I know, but it's about matching the audience to the facilitators, which will empty and reduce divide. It's about knowing your audience, knowing what's being relatable. So, you know, functional skills, you know, the kids roll their eyes as soon as you say the word functional skills, but they all have to do it. But put it into the context that's relevant to them. So, for example, music or childcare or whatever, that's going to help reduce that divide, because it's not just about social economics, it's also about the divide of what's relevant to young people, because we're all grown adults, and sometimes we actually forget what drives those young people, because it's very different to what we used to drive us. I think Julian said we were more compliant as children, as learners, than today's society, and that in itself can cause a divide.
I'll open that question up. Thank you very much for that, Leah. I'll open that question up as well to the rest of the panelists. Julian, the question which we're asking is, what could be done to help address the problem of digital divide from your perspective?
So this is one of the things I wanted to mention, actually, is upskilling those who are on the wrong side of the divide with the tech skills and tools to approach developing this stuff for themselves. Because at the moment, what's happening is the skills are only held by a very finite number of people, and they're kind of making the assumptions as to what is required for the learners, right? In between that, you often sometimes have entrepreneurs who may feel the problem, and then they engage with engineers and what have you. But actually, in the world of in the rapidly accelerating world of things like no code and software as a service, other solutions, what it means is that it's become a lot easier now for non-technical people to build technical solutions, right? And so I think the comment around getting learners to involved in the design and the product development for their own benefit, I think is an important one. And what I would like to see is the digital divide, including not just literacy as a user, but as a producer. I think that's where technology is going as a whole. And I think EdTech might be one of the more interesting use cases to lead that idea that actually, if there are frameworks out there, if there's no code environments, if there are APIs and plugins where, people can start to craft their own solutions, then, that could really propel the space, actually. It is an early idea. I'm not sure everything is there ready and ready to go, but I do know that people are working on it. I do know that within the technology industry as a whole, there is an ambition to make it less code dependent, so that there are people with different ways of thinking who can come in and exercise the technology that's there to create solutions that can work for them.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that. Thank you very much.
I think from my part, and thanks to Margaret for this wonderful question. It's a very, very big question. Could take a long time to even reply properly, but a very short response could be digital divide exists at different levels and for different communities of practice. Now, this is where the likes of the EdTech guys like Julian can play a serious role here, but also educational institutions can play a serious role here. Communities, community groups can also play a serious role, but I think the professional bodies such as the BCS has a pivotal role to play here. One of the ways, one thing that can actually be done is introduce what we may call digital literacy program. The digital literacy program will exist for different brands or different categories of people. It could be for the young learners, for the old learners, and all different categories for the employees, even for managers and directors or whatever it may be. But everything is directed, there should be a clear-cut strategy similar to what the BCS did in coming up with the Learning and Development Board and so many other different things. So a digital literacy program with everybody on board, all hands on deck, to make sure that everybody becomes digitally literate is one of the ways to go forward. Another thing is, just as Julian has noted there, the EdTech guys, they need to temper the strong urge for profit, with the common good. What is the common good here for society? And I know some 30 odd years ago, when we were pushing here, some of us in the UK were pushing for knowledge about computing and everything to be pushed to the likes of Asia and Africa. But until very recently, until after Tim Berners-Lee with the World Wide Web and so on unleashed the internet world, Africa never enjoyed things like this, like we are talking about now. So I think the EdTech guys need to look at not letting profit take over things, but to look at really how everybody, the common good,
fantastic,
will be useful here.
Fantastic. Thank you very much all for today. Thank you for your time.